They boycotted my wedding. My own parents refused to come. Reddit Storytime. What happens when the people you expect to love you most abandon you on your biggest day? This is the heartbreaking Reddit-inspired story of family, betrayal, and the dream that shattered. Every little girl dreams of her wedding day, or so they say. I wasn't the type to doodle wedding dresses in notebooks or fantasize about flower arrangements. But even I imagined one thing clearly. When the day came, my parents would be there. I pictured my dad walking me down the aisle, his proud smile steadying my shaking hands. My mom dabbing at her eyes, telling everyone how beautiful her daughter looked. No matter what else, I assumed their presence was a given. But life has a way of burning assumptions to ash. When I met Ryan, I felt like the universe had finally handed me something good. He wasn't flashy or rich, but he was steady, kind, and endlessly patient. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue, and within weeks, I knew he was different. With him, I didn't feel like I had to earn love through achievements or perfection. I could just be. My parents didn't approve. They never said it outright at first, but their disapproval seeped through every comment. He's nice, but he's not really ambitious, is he? My dad remarked one evening. Does he even come from a good family? My mom asked, her tone laced with suspicion. Ryan worked as a teacher. He didn't make six figures. He didn't come from money or prestige. And to my parents, that was enough reason to look down on him. But to me, he was everything. When Ryan proposed, I said yes without hesitation. It wasn't about the ring, which was modest. It wasn't about the grand gesture, though he did get down on one knee in the park where we had our first date. It was about knowing I wanted a future with him. I rushed to call my parents, expecting at least some joy. Instead, my mom's voice was flat. Are you sure about this? Of course I'm sure, I said, my excitement wilting. I love him. You think love pays the bills? My dad cut in. Marriage is about stability. I don't see how he can provide that. Their words stung, but I brushed them aside. I thought they'd come around once they saw how happy we were. I was wrong. As the wedding planning began, tension only grew. I showed my mom a picture of the dress I loved. Simple, elegant, nothing extravagant. She frowned. Don't you want something more impressive? I mentioned the small garden venue Ryan and I had booked. My dad scoffed. That's not a real wedding venue. It looks cheap. Every detail became a battleground. Guest list, food, decorations, nothing was ever good enough. And beneath it all, their disapproval of Ryan simmered, boiling over in passive-aggressive remarks. Finally, one night over dinner, my dad dropped the pretense. If you marry him, we won't be there, he said bluntly. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. What do you mean? You won't be there. Exactly what I said, he replied coldly. We can't support this marriage. If you go through with it, you're doing it without us. My mom nodded silently, her lips pressed in a thin line. The words hit harder than any slap could have. I thought it was an empty threat. Surely they wouldn't actually boycott their own daughter's wedding. Surely love, parental love, if nothing else, would outweigh pride and disapproval. But as the months ticked by and the wedding drew closer, their silence told me the truth. They weren't coming. I was going to walk down that aisle without them. The weight of absence. Planning a wedding is supposed to be stressful, but the kind of stress I felt was different. Brides worry about centerpieces, guest lists, or whether the flowers will wilt in the sun. I worried about the two empty chairs that would sit at the front row of my ceremony, glaring reminders that my parents had chosen pride over me. Friends tried to reassure me. They'll change their minds. Emily, my maid of honor, said as she helped me address invitations. No parents actually skipped their kid's wedding. They're bluffing. But I knew better. The silence from them wasn't a bluff. It was a wall. The weeks leading up to the big day were a blur of contradictions. On one hand, there was joy. Cake tastings, Ryan's hand warm in mine as we visited the venue, laughter with bridesmaids during fittings. On the other, there was grief. Phone calls from relatives asking why my parents weren't helping, long nights staring at my phone hoping for a text that never came. Ryan did his best to shoulder the weight. Your family is here now, he'd whisper, kissing my temple. Me. Us. That's what matters. I wanted to believe him. And in many ways, I did. But a part of me still longed for the simplest thing. My mom helping me zip up my dress, my dad taking my arm as I walked down the aisle. Those were the dreams that wouldn't let go. 3 weeks before the wedding, I made one last attempt. I drove to my parents' house, rehearsing a speech the whole way. I wouldn't beg. I promised myself that, but I would be honest. I would tell them how much this hurt, how much I wanted them there. When my mom opened the door, surprise flickered across her face, followed by resignation. "Oh, it's you." I stepped inside. The house smelled the same, lemon cleaner and faint coffee, but it felt foreign. "Cold. Can we talk?" I asked. We sat in the living room, the silence between us thick. My dad crossed his arms. "If this is about the wedding, don't bother." "It is about the wedding," I said, my voice trembling. I want you there. I don't care if you hate Ryan. I don't care if you think I'm making a mistake. I want my parents to see me get married." For a moment, I thought I saw my mom's eyes soften. But then my dad shook his head. "No, we won't stand by and watch you throw your life away." Tears pricked my eyes. "So that's it. I either live the life you want, or I lose you completely." His silence was answer enough. I left their house that night knowing they wouldn't change their minds. And something in me hardened. If they wouldn't stand by me, then I'd stand taller without them. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and warm. The garden was blooming, white chairs lined up neatly, sunlight filtering through the trees. My friends bustled around me, fixing my veil, touching up my makeup, trying to fill the silence where my mother's voice should have been. "You look stunning," Emily whispered. "Your parents are missing out." I smiled weakly. I wanted to believe that, but the ache in my chest wouldn't let me. Then Ryan came in, breaking tradition, just to see me before the ceremony. His eyes widened when he saw me in the dress. "You're perfect," he breathed. And for the first time that day, I felt steady, because maybe it didn't matter who was missing. What mattered was who was there. As the ceremony began, the emptiness of those front row chairs cut through me like glass. Guests glanced at them, whispering, wondering. But then Ryan's eyes locked on mine, and suddenly the noise faded. I walked down the aisle alone. My legs trembled, but I kept my chin high. When I reached Ryan, his hands reached for mine, grounding me. "We've got this," he whispered. And I believed him. The vows were raw and real. We promised not perfection, but presence. Not wealth, but partnership. Not certainty, but faith. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the cheers erupted. My friends clapped, Ryan's family cried, strangers smiled. In that moment, I realized something profound. Yes, my parents had boycotted my wedding. But love still filled the air, heavy and undeniable. Their absence hurt, but it didn't destroy me. After the aisle, weddings are supposed to be the start of something new, but mine also marked the end of something old. The morning after, I woke up next to Ryan in our small hotel room, my wedding dress still draped across a chair. The joy of being married shimmered inside me, but so did the heavy shadow of those empty chairs. I scrolled through my phone, looking at the photos friends had already posted. Smiling faces, champagne glasses, my first kiss with Ryan as husband and wife. But then my stomach dropped, comments from distant relatives. "Where were your parents? Such a shame they didn't show. Hope they come around soon." Their absence wasn't just personal anymore. It was public, and every comment reminded me of the choice they'd made, not just to skip my wedding, but to brand me with their disapproval for everyone to see. Ryan noticed my silence. "Hey," he said softly, pulling the phone from my hands. "Don't let them ruin this. Yesterday was about us." He was right, but grief doesn't follow logic. The weeks that followed were a blur of adjustment. We moved into a small apartment, started building routines, grocery lists, shared chores, quiet evenings with takeout and laughter. In many ways, I was happy, but every time the phone rang, I hoped it was my parents. And every time it wasn't, the wound reopened. It wasn't just silence. It was hostility. An aunt called me, voice hushed. "Your parents are furious. They said you embarrassed them, that you chose him over family." I wanted to scream. Of course I chose him. That's what marriage is. But instead, I just thanked her for calling and hung up, my hands shaking. Later, I found out they'd told extended family they were ashamed of me. That Ryan wasn't worthy. That I'd ruined my life. The betrayal stung almost more than their absence. They weren't just gone. They were rewriting the story of my wedding, turning it into something shameful instead of beautiful. One night, after weeks of bottling it up, I broke down in front of Ryan. "I don't know if I can do this," I sobbed. "They're my parents. I can't just erase them. But I can't keep letting them hurt me either." He held me close, his voice steady. "You don't have to erase them. But you don't have to let them dictate your happiness either. Family isn't just blood, it's who shows up." His words echoed Emily's from months before. Family isn't always blood. Maybe it was time I started believing it. A turning point came 3 months later. Ryan and I hosted a small dinner party in our apartment. Nothing fancy, just pasta, wine, laughter with friends. At one point, I looked around the room and realized something. The chairs were full. Maybe not with my parents, but with people who cared, who chose me. And in that moment, the ache softened. But life has a way of testing newfound peace. A few weeks later, I received a message from my mother. Just one line. "We heard you're pregnant. Is it true?" My heart raced. Ryan and I hadn't told anyone yet. We'd just found out ourselves. But apparently the news had spread. I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Yes. We're expecting." The reply came quickly. "Then maybe it's time we talk." I didn't know whether to feel hope or dread. Was this an olive branch? Or another trap to guilt me back into their control? Ryan squeezed my hand when I showed him the texts. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." For the first time in months, I felt ready. Not to beg, not to convince, but to stand firm. Because I had learned something since the wedding. Love isn't proven by blood or by words. It's proven by presence. And if they wanted a place in my life now, they'd have to earn it. The return. When my parents asked to meet, I agreed, not out of desperation this time, but out of curiosity. We chose a quiet cafe halfway between our homes. As I walked in, I spotted them immediately, my mom sitting stiffly, my dad's arms crossed like armor. For a moment, I was that little girl again, desperate for their approval. But then Ryan's hand brushed mine, grounding me. I wasn't here as a child. I was here as a woman, a wife, and soon, a mother. "Congratulations," my mother said when I sat down, her voice careful. "On the baby." "Thank you," I replied, keeping my tone steady. Silence stretched between us. Finally, my dad spoke. "We want to be part of our grandchild's life." The words might have once filled me with relief. Now, they just felt heavy. "You didn't want to be part of my wedding," I reminded them. "Why now?" My mom flinched. "We made mistakes." "Mistakes?" My voice rose before I could stop it. "You didn't just make a mistake. You abandoned me on the most important day of my life. You told people you were ashamed of me. And now that there's a baby, suddenly you care?" The cafe buzzed around us, but at our table, the world narrowed. My dad's jaw tightened. "We were trying to protect you. We thought Ryan wasn't good enough." I leaned forward. "And did boycotting my wedding protect me? Or did it just prove you care more about appearances than your own daughter's happiness?" They had no answer. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Ryan, calm as ever, broke the silence. "We're not saying you can't be part of our child's life," he said. "But it has to be on our terms. Respect, honesty, and support. No more ultimatums. No more shame." I nodded, my chest tight but certain. "If you can accept that, then maybe there's a future. If you can't, then I won't let you hurt me or my family again." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered. "Then don't," I said simply. The weeks that followed were tentative. My parents didn't transform overnight. They still made snide comments sometimes, still struggled to accept Ryan fully. But they showed up, slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly. When our baby was born, they were at the hospital. My dad cried holding his grandchild, though he tried to hide it. My mom whispered apologies she'd never spoken before. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was progress. Looking back now, I see the truth clearly. My parents boycotted my wedding, and nothing will erase that pain. The empty chairs are part of my story. But so is resilience. So is love. So is the family Ryan and I are building. One chosen by us, not dictated by anyone else. I used to think their absence defined me. Now I know better. Their absence didn't destroy my wedding. It only proved that the people who mattered most were the ones who showed up. And love, in the end, filled every empty seat.